You can start. We're right next to each other for anyone who wants to see a little.
All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
So we are here with Larra Overton and J.J. Stankevitz, and today we are discussing the Indianapolis Colts. They're live at the 2022 NFL Combine down in Indy. Guys, what has the experience, first off, been this week down there covering the Combine?
It has felt like such a return to normalcy because this is the last normal thing that we really did in 2020 before the pandemic ceased so much of our perceived normal daily life, especially for those of us in the NFL, going to games, all of those different things that you might be doing, even pro days, and then not having the Combine in 2021. So it's been refreshing to just see people again and get a firsthand perspective of what this upcoming draft class is going to look like, how they perform in live action. It's always great to see them on the Colts home field, seeing them over at Lucas Oil Stadium. So all of those things have been overall, I think it's refreshing is the word that I would use, and revitalizing. There's been a great energy all week long. We started things off strong with both Chris Ballard and Coach Reich speaking and addressing the media, and I feel like ever since then the momentum has just been building toward what we know will be a very pivotal off-season free agency period and draft upcoming.
I've really liked it from the perspective of, like, we've been talking to so many people here. You'll hear all these interviews on the Colts Audio Network, but, like, you know, today we talked to Dan Graziano and Laura Rutledge back to back for some stuff, and, you know, we're talking to Mike Tannenbaum later. We've talked with, Brad Spielberger, like every draft expert who's here. You know, whether it's like Matt Miller or Jordan Reed or the great Dane Brugler, we're just like cycling people through our table here, and it's felt like Larry said, it's felt very normal to be able to have these in-person interactions with people again, because I'm so sick of Zoom. Like, doing this over StreamYard with you guys, this is great. I wish you guys were here at the Combine, because it'd be better just to sit down and do it together. So that part's been great. For me personally, just to, you know, be able to see a bunch of my friends in the media again. You know, I know, Larry, you had a dinner with, you know, a bunch of team reporters. I got to go out to dinner with all my colleagues, my former colleagues on the Bears beat. It's been a very, like revitalizing is a very good word for it. And the other thing, guys, that we keep hearing, don't move the Combine out of Indy. Please keep it here. No one wants it to leave this place, yet the NFL still might.
Right? I know we talked about that. They're like going with the voting like here really soon, aren't they?
One of the guys we had a chance to sit down with, Matt Taylor and I, is the head of Visit Indy, the VP of Communications for Visit Indy. And he said that Indy is going to be bidding for the 23 and 24 Combines together. They're not putting in single-year bids, but he also kind of admitted that the Combine is sort of like Indianapolis is a victim of its own success with the Combine. Like, it's been done so well here that other cities are like, oh, we could do that, when in actuality, they might not be able to.
See, that's the thing. I mean, because this thing is really just so connected. I mean, you've got access to anything and everything when you want it, when you need it and stuff. And I think it is going to be harder. I understand you got Jerry's World and the whole LA, but this is always so spread out. And here, you know, you can walk to whatever venue you need to be to. You can get
and medicals. You don't ever have to leave. It's under one roof.
Yeah, and your medicals are there at the snap of a finger. I mean, it's just – I hope that they have success, just not enough success that bring it back here.
Oh my goodness. I'm not going to go into the whole situation where if you guys want to hear about their discussion, go check out the Colts official podcast, because they had a nice little discussion about this earlier. I'll just kind of push your podcast out there a little bit. I don't know about you guys, but I am so tired of hearing fans and podcasters, not that they don't have a reason, because they absolutely do. You know, the way the season ended, it was upsetting. And because of how it ended, it's almost, you get the feel of almost it's time to burn it down and start fresh, the way that they're talking. You hear it just like that, and you're like, come on, guys. I know it didn't end the way you wanted it, but there is a lot of really good things about this team. And I want to get into that. I want to talk about, and this was my boy Loyalist's idea, about getting a bunch of people together and talking about what we like about the Colts, not just with players, coaching, the staff, anything that you really, really like about the team and that you think is a good thing to keep and moving forward. So, Larra, what are some things that, when you think of the Indianapolis Colts and you think this is something that is very, very good with the team that, is unique, with not just unique, but just really good, and hope that it sticks around?
In the conversations we've had with so many of the analysts this week, a lot of them have referred to, and these are totally independent conversations, is that this team is close. It's a team of 7 Pro Bowl players. You have foundational pieces on both sides of the ball. Now you add to that a Gus Bradley defense, which can add some new wrinkles to this defense. They can take steps from that. He is already inheriting a defense with guys like DeForest Buckner and Kenny Moore and Darius Leonard that you have. And now you can take that what you have there, and then the depth pieces behind it, and continue to build and grow that from what we saw, a team that was one of the best in takeaways, of course, the last 2 seasons. Okay, how do you get better in coverage? How do you get better on the edge? How do you get better in pass rush? But you have the talent there because of the guys you have, with so many guys within that defense returning. And then offensively, let's start with the fact you got the best running back in the NFL. You have Jonathan Taylor, who is coming off a stellar season and is proving that he is only going to get better with time. Those are 2 different aspects of the team where I look to that this is going to be a great strength, that you have so many pieces on your defense. You have your running back in place. You do have weapons like Michael Pittman Jr. to build around within the offense, regardless of what happens with your quarterback situation. Starting from the top, you have a very passionate owner who has said all chips are in. He is going to empower Chris Ballard to make the necessary moves to be sure that this is a team that's in contention in the near future. Don't forget, it wasn't so long ago when we're talking about mid to late December. It was the team that no one wanted to face. And that is much of the same that you're bringing back this season. You just have to address some of the other issues that didn't allow you to get things done. In talking with the draft analysts, everyone has such high regard for what Chris Ballard has done already and what he will do with the picks he already has. With not having a first-round pick, don't forget, round 2 has been a good spot for the Indianapolis Colts. That's where you've got Darius Leonard and Braden Smith. It's where you've got Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman Jr. So I expect that Chris Ballard, Ed Dodds, that entire front office, the wealth of scouts that they have, will work their magic on day 2 with those picks that they have. Frank Reich is one of the most respected head coaches that there is in the league, and now he adds another piece to his coaching staff with bringing in Gus Bradley, who has head coaching experience. And Frank told us earlier in the week he's excited what he can learn from Gus, with Gus having not only such established success as a defensive coordinator, but having that head coaching resume as well. And then when I look to the guys you have returning on this roster, when we talked to Kenny Moore just a couple weeks ago, those guys who were out in Vegas for the Pro Bowl took a lot of motivation from being out there. And then keep in mind, Kenny went to LA for the Super Bowl as well as Walter Payton Man of the Year, as those honorees were recognized. And he said they all looked at each other one day, having breakfast, and were like, we should still be playing. We shouldn't just be kind of playing in this ceremonious type of Pro Bowl. We should be playing meaningful football in February. And that is a chip on the shoulder that these guys are going to have going into next season and over the course of this off season. The other great thing, we know from Frank Reich, it is a priority to have a full off-season program. That is where the foundation of this team is going to be built. Exactly. We're all celebrating that. And where you're going to see them align the pieces to put in place that, first and foremost, has a better start to the season than what we have seen in the past, so that you're not in a position of late in the season having to potentially play your way in a week 17 or 18 position.
Hey guys, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so that you're notified next time I go live. Don't forget, you can also share this video to your favorite social media, and please open up that description of the video. In there you find a link to my Patreon, which is only $5 a month. Get all of my content plus Patreon specific content, and of course my merch shop right here. JJ?
So I want to dive into one thing here, because Larra did such a good job giving every single reason why you should be excited about the Colts. There is nothing that Larra did not miss in that. But I want to dive in on Frank Reich. And I'm always impressed whenever I ask anyone around the league, any other reporter who's here, what do you think of Frank Reich? They think the world of him as a head coach, as an offensive schemer, as a play caller, which is, I know, something that fans sometimes disagree with. I would disagree with them. But here's the thing with Frank Reich, and this maybe was the most illustrative thing. I was talking with Cynthia Freeland from NFL Network, who does such a great job with data and analytics and presenting it in a very approachable way. And I brought up to her that, so let me get this right here. In the first, second, and third quarters last season, the Colts went for it on fourth down the second most in the NFL. Only the Detroit Lions, who had nothing to lose, went for it more than the Colts between the first and third quarter. So I use that as you're not in desperation mode yet, but you're being aggressive. So only the Lions, again, a team that had nothing to lose, were more aggressive than the Colts. Yet, on those fourth downs, Frank Reich's teams converted almost 70% of those fourth downs. That was the 8th highest total in the NFL. And I talked to Cynthia about it because there was all this discourse this year about Brandon Staley and the Chargers and how they went for it all those times against the Chiefs on Thursday night. And, oh, my God, what is he doing? What a dope. You get a punt and kick on fourth down. The Chargers converted less than 50% of those fourth downs. And something Cynthia said is that the Chargers only had a couple plays that they ran on fourth down. And they became very predictable after about weeks 3 or 4 that, all right, it's fourth down. They're going for it. We know what they're going to go to. The Colts, you didn't know what they were going to go to on fourth down because Frank Reich had so many more plays in his arsenal that he schemed up for those situations. And the Colts executed them really well. So that's just one thing to drill down on that on Frank Reich. He is a fantastic coach, a fantastic offensive coach in the NFL. I was listening to Robert Mays and his podcast, The Athletic Football Show, during the season, and they were talking about who's a seat at the table among the best offensive play callers in the NFL. And a lot of it were the names you would expect: Reed, McVay, Shanahan, Peyton. And they included Frank Reich in that. And I think sometimes here in Indianapolis, especially with the way the season ended, especially with, the run the damn ball mentality, that sometimes we lose sight of how good of a head coach and play caller Frank Reich is. He is one of the top 10 play callers in the NFL, full stop. That is such an important thing to have. If you don't have that as an offense, that is something that's sometimes difficult to overcome. The Colts have that. That is one of the most important building blocks of an offense, is the play caller. And again, the Colts have that in Frank Reich.
Yeah, and I'd like to ask, by the way, JJ, congratulations on year 1.
Thank you.
You talk to people and you listen and you hear a lot of this, oh, we need this or we need that. You hear them talk like we're void of talent, okay? And I know the Pro Bowlers, everybody, but what about, let's look into the Julian Blackmons and the Quiddy Pays and the Dial. This team has a lot of young pieces. No, they're not Pro Bowl players yet, but you can see the blocks, the building blocks and stuff, and how this could work out and help this team take that next step just through normal maturation. What do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You mentioned Julian Blackmon, a guy who's kind of forgotten after he had that injury this season during practice of all things. But, you think about, this is something that always cracks me up, guys, that, the 2019 NFL draft. Some folks are like, Oh, it wasn't a good draft. Ben Bandigo isn't panned out. Paris Campbell's been hurt. Rock Yacine, shaky start to his career before this year. But, okay, think about this 2019 draft. You got Rock Yacine, who's a starting cornerback. You got Bobby Okereke, who's a starting linebacker. You got Carrie Willis, who's a starting safety. You got E.J. Speed, who is a core special teamer. There are like 20 teams in the NFL that would kill to have a draft that good, where they got that many players who they can count on. So you just think about the depth of this roster and how much talent there is across the board. You think the 2020 draft, you got Isaiah Rodgers, Danny Pinter, and Jordan Glasgow in the 5th and 6th rounds. Those 3 guys right there, Danny Pinter is the guy who Chris Ballard's praising this week, that they think he's got a really bright future in the NFL. Isaiah Rodgers, same thing. He'd be a starting quarterback for the Colts next year if some things shake out. Jordan Glasgow, another core special teamer. The Colts, by the way, always have one of the best special teams units in the NFL. Can't discount that. You look what happened to the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. You can't discount that. So just this collection of talent, like you said, it's a really good point of not just the 7 guys who went to the Pro Bowl, but the guys who fill out the rest of the roster and perform so well. A Grover Stewart, a Mo Alley Cox, a guy who's been ascending as a run blocker, over the course of his career. There's so much talent and so much depth on this roster that, yes, if you, like Larra said, if you just address a couple of positions, now they're not easy positions to address, but if you can do it and do it successfully, this roster absolutely is ready to go contend for a Super Bowl right now.
Larra, I want to come to you because there's something that a lot of people don't talk about, in my opinion, and that's the football operations, right? Guys like Rocco Brown, Kevin Rogers, Brian Decker, guys like that are on this team that are really at the top of their positions in the NFL. I mean, they're looked at by, every team in the NFL and go, these are like some of the best guys at their positions, at their jobs in the NFL. And you can tell that by a lot of these guys, like let's say Ed Dodds and Morocco Brown, they're getting interviews with other teams all the time. And they choose to stay here in Indy and work with. And that tells me that, unlike how a lot of people say that, we just have a hard time getting people in and getting interviews and getting people to want to come here. These guys are choosing to stay here, and they are some of the most wanted people in the NFL. That speaks volumes for not just the locker room, but the front office itself, the whole building, right?
There is so much continuity and so much to be said for continuity that there is on that side of the building. Going back to a conversation that was out on social media a few weeks ago when the interviews were going on for the defensive coordinator role, and it was something along the lines of the Colts aren't a desirable job, or that's not a good landing spot. People don't see that as a place where they want to go to continue their coaching career. And it was, I think that was blown out of the water, and that was certainly disproven by the fact that Gus Bradley could have gone anywhere. Gus Bradley was one of the most sought after defensive coordinators that was on the market this 2022 season, or at the end of the 2021 season, going into the 2022 off season. The move he made, the commitment he made to the Colts, and then the pieces he was able to bring in, I think shunned all of that conversation. And that speaks to the confidence that there is in the front office, led by Chris and Ed and all of the names you listed, because that group is like year 5, year 6, depending on whose role you look at. Even guys like Kevin Rogers, long prior to Chris Ballard coming in, been around a long time. But when you have a scouting department and a front office and football operations led by Chris and led by Ed, where the core group is coming together and has been together for multiple years, they have an established system. They know how they're going to navigate this period of time, not just in preparation through the draft, but also in terms of free agency, because Mike Bloom is a guy who does not get enough recognition for the contributions he makes, how incredible he is at his job in managing the Colts salary cap and those, different nuances of the free agency period as well. That is a group that has so much trust in each other, and they are willing to explore different avenues to get things done. Yes, the Colts have a certain philosophy that they operate under overall in approaching the draft and free agency, but it is a very creative group. It's a very smart group, and it's a group that trusts each other a whole lot. Chris Ballard, Ed Dodds empower their scouts and trust them that they know exactly what they're doing, whether it's in pursuit of a guy in free agency that they're going to want to go after as we get to the beginning of the new league year, or if it is a guy who you're going to try to grab in the second round or in those later rounds where you can get impactful players later in the draft that are going to be guys you can count upon immediately. There are certainly going to be some developmental pieces, but you're able to identify guys that are potentially not on other radars. And we have seen this group of Colts football operations prove their success with that level. And I think a lot of that goes to, one, the continuity of having this group together for 5 years, 6 in some circumstances.
Yeah, some guys that also don't get enough attention. That's like Steve Campbell, my boy Matt Conti, who does so much.
Matt Conti is like my Anthony Costanzo. As Andrew Luck called him, he's the pillar of that offensive line. Like Matt Conti is that pillar of both communications. Like the guy who's at the top 3 people at his position every year, but never gets the recognition, right? For doing it for as long as he does at such high level. So yeah, Conti is like my Costanzo in that regard.
I got to say, you talk to anyone around the league, any other media member, and they're like, oh, you got a great PR staff there in Indianapolis. Like it is not just here in Indianapolis that folks know. They know around it, how good this staff is around the league.
Absolutely. Guys, I appreciate you. I said 10, 15 minutes. You've been here almost a half an hour. I'm sorry for holding you guys over. But thank you so much. Take a moment. JJ, we'll start with you. Then we'll go to Larra. Tell people where they could find you, as if they don't know, but there might be people out there that don't, where they could find you and all that.
Well, you can find me at the Portillo's in Westfield quite a bit. Getting my beef sandwich dipped with giardiniera. Anyways, you can find me on Twitter at JJ Stankevitz. You can read me on Colts.com and on the Colts app, and you can hear me and Larra on the Colts official podcast presented by WinBet. That comes out every Tuesday in your feeds on the Colts audio network.
And I am at Larra Overton, LarraOverton, on all of the different platforms, Twitter, Instagram. And then in addition to joining JJ on the podcast in the off season, I'll also produce it with
This channel is proudly sponsored by the Backroom Collection. They do beautiful sports canvas art with football, basketball, baseball, and other sports themes. Special orders are accepted and autograph pieces are available. Many Indianapolis Colts signed pieces will be available beginning in November. Just use your discount code CL10 to purchase the pieces you want to spice up your living area. That's CL10.
Guys, like you said, you heard Lawrence and stuff, and I know we talk about it quite a bit. Am I the only one that feels this way? Am I the only one that feels like, you know what, the Colts have a lot more positive than negatives to talk about? What do you think, Harrison?
First of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. It'd be easy for me to sit here and say everything's fine. It's not. But I'm pretty sure you was there at the end of my last stream I did with Robbie Michael Hoist. A bit of a sort of what you guys are doing now, the positivity around, and it's not all that bad. We're a good team. We're a very good team. It fell apart at the end, and that can happen in football. It's the age-old saying, you can lose to anyone. Any given Sunday, I suppose, is the cliche. We could sit here and rip Carson Wentz apart and what we think, and if you like him and if you don't like him or whatever. But, you look at the future of this team, bearing in mind it's a very young team all across the board. Jonathan Taylor, MVP for me. If it wasn't a popularity contest, he would have been MVP. Quentin Nelson, left guard, probably the best in his position, probably one of the best linemen we'll ever see. And Darius Leonard, Kenny Moore. I mean, there's probably loads of guys. We're getting Reggie back as the wide receiver coach, which is amazing. And I'm excited to see what Gus Bradley can bring into it.
Yeah. And to your point, this team, we had 7 Pro Bowlers this year. Okay. So to sit there and have people act like this team is I understand that we don't have all the pieces yet, but we've got a large portion of them. Okay. What, Joe, this one I'd like to field to you because Joe's a Pittsburgh fan, but he's also adopted the Colts way quite a bit. We've had a lot of conversations and stuff in the Discord and Patreon, and this guy he's the true blue. So, Joe, what's your favorite thing about the Colts?
Well, I'm gonna start off with a real positive here. Okay, you get to play the Texans twice a year. Okay, let's start with that one. All right.
All right.
You get to play the Texans twice a year, so right off the rip, okay, that's a blessing. Okay, but we'll start with something good like that. But I do agree with Harrison as well. Quentin Nelson is probably the best lineman in the game right now. He's on pace to get a gold jacket at some point. Jonathan Taylor, I do agree. I also agree with Harrison. Should have been the MVP. Like he said it perfectly. If it wasn't a popularity contest, he should have been, because he was, in my opinion. To be honest with you, does anybody ever consider a lineman an MVP candidate? Does anybody ever consider a linebacker an MVP candidate? You could have made it a case legitimately for me. If you look at the amount of turnovers that were created on defense, Leonard should have been in that discussion at some point somewhere. Donald was in that. It was in that discussion, but I feel like with those kinds of things, you sometimes you just gotta kind of mute all the noise that you hear, all this peripheral BS that people talk, and you do have to focus on what you can build on here. There's a lot to build on here, a lot. The defense performed well. Another positive, they have made a decision to take the defense that may have underachieved a little bit last year, possibly, but there's a lot of talent on that defense. And they brought a guy in that I think a few of us agree, at least, that you can count on to do things to improve and utilize that personnel in a better way than it was being utilized under Eberflus. I feel like Bradley is going to bring some dynamism to the defense. I feel like that's a huge positive. They're going in the right direction. They're making the defense a little bit more unpredictable, and I feel like he'll be better able to utilize the talent that's available there, because Ballard's done a really good job of getting talent on that defense. So those are things that all stand out to me in terms of big, huge check marks in the positive column.
Absolutely. And Doc, like I said, guys, this young man here is from Japan, so he's got he joined the Discord. A lot
younger than me, so.
He joined the Discord about 2 weeks ago or whatever, and really brought a lot of insight and stuff. And this guy's got some good insights on the Colts. So, what do you think, Doc?
Well, I think the biggest positive about Indianapolis right now is the culture, and basically, I'm looking at this Colts team right now, and they remind me a lot of that Rams team a couple years ago, the greatest show on turf. Before they were missing. They were missing 2 pieces, Marshall Faulk and Kurt Warner. When they got those 2 pieces, they became the greatest show on turf. So I see the Colts as being just right there, just a couple pieces. They're a couple pieces away from being a true Super Bowl contender. There's a lot to be positive on, and I don't think I could say anything more than what Harrison and Joe said, because they've checked all the boxes. It's just, this team is this team's ready to go, and they're going to make a big splash. And I see us winning the AFC South next year for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, you sit there and you look at this organization. Okay, we're talking about Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson and Jonathan Taylor and stuff. But I mean, let's look at what else we've got in the pipeline. Okay, we've in the secondary, we've got Carrie Willis, who's proved to be a decently solid safety, but he's playing alongside just an absolute stud. And the way these two guys communicate and stuff, I mean, Julian Blackmon gets healthy and gets back into the lineup and stuff. I mean, it's like everybody forgets how he blew the Packers up in that, game 2 years ago. I mean, everybody forgets what this kid overcame just to even get on the field in his first year, and then what he produced for us before he got injured this last year. I mean, I look at Julian Blackmon and I'm like, man, this guy could be one of those dudes, the guy or whatever you want, however you want to label. I look at that, and then I sit there and I also look at our other secondary and Isaiah Rodgers and Rock Ya-Sin. Rock Ya-Sin, I don't care. I know everybody was giving him a bunch of crap over the first couple of years and stuff, but he stepped up. He developed into that player that we were hoping for. I'm not going to put him as a lockdown corner just yet, but this team doesn't really run that type of defense that I mean, obviously you'd like to have a lockdown corner, but you don't need one. You need one who can play in the system. And I feel like Rock has really found his spot in the system. And for me, that just seems like just in the secondary. I can't remember the last time the Colts had a defense that was sitting there and got me this excited to talk about. I mean, and then you look in the linebacking core. Bobby Okereke stepped up he stepped up in the run defense better than I thought he would. I was sort of worried after losing Anthony Walker. I was just like, man, I call him Andrew all the time. Sorry about that. But anyhow, I was really worried about that. Was our run defense going to take a step back? And I would argue that after week 5, I feel like Bobby really started stepping up. Week 5, week 6, he really started to evolve as that good replacement. And in coverage, he's light years better than AWalk was ever in coverage. So, I mean, you look at the linebackers, and then the defensive line, you got 2 studs on the interior. You got Defoe, and then you've got Grover. I mean, I'm sorry. I would find you hard pressed to find a better duo. Not to say that there aren't people that are a couple duos that are equal or comparable, but I'm telling you right now, these 2 guys are definitely cornerstones that you'd want in the interior. And then we're back to our hope again. You look at the end position. We got, Kwity Paye and we got Odengbo, who both of them had their own struggles and stuff through their rookie year and stuff, whether it was Odengbo because he was injured coming in or Kwity because he got injured, with that hamstring. And I feel like that hamstring was a huge problem for him. So, there's just a plethora of talent on defense, And I just love sitting there thinking about the Colts with a good defense. I mean, we haven't really seen that, in a very long time. I mean, I love the Peyton Manning era. I love the Andrew Luck era. But none of those gave you that defense that you just sat there and go, you know what? This could be a top 5 defense. And I'm not saying that we're there yet, but I do think that we're starting to get ourselves a little bit closer to that. What do you think on that one, Joe?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. And you brought up a really good point about Rock. I was high on him last year when a lot of people, kind of, dog shit the guy because he was a little bit too grabby or whatever. But, you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt, I think. It takes corners a little bit to develop. And if he's shown that I feel like he showed that he was a lot better and made himself a lot better this year. He kind of reinvented himself. He's shown that he can play both man and zone, which is invaluable. He was by far their best corner this year. I think he'll get better under Bradley. And the other part of this too is, okay, if the Colts do happen to retain Teray, he would be a really good. I know, and the reason why he only took 20% of the snaps last year But if you look at how he fits into that Leo linebacker spot, if they do decide to retain him, you're going to have even more depth and even more dynamism alongside a guy like Quiddy Pay, because he typically likes to play on that left side.
And Doc, I'm going to start with you, bub. What is it you see when you look at this Colts and what they've got on the roster?
They go on offense, Wentz or whoever's quarterback will utilize the short passing game more. And because I just see that more as a benefit than what Wentz did last year, trying to air the ball downfield. And just like Ballard pointed out, making the layups.
Yeah.
So that's what I see on offense. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Harrison?
Doc touched on JT. JT is fantastic, isn't he? And I think we all are going to remember that play against the Patriots for a long time. That is a where were you moment for Colts fans. We should be hyped about this team and this offense. It's not as if the offense was stale. It just did what a young team does and create stupid plays. Unforced errors, and that's whether that's coaching, playbooks, quarterbacks, receivers. Everyone made a mistake, but I like the explosiveness from the team this year, I suppose.
That honestly, I feel like there is a lot more positive than what everybody wants to focus on. Okay. And I'm not sitting here trying to be this, Carson Wentz is the end all beat all. That's not what I'm saying. And that's where I feel like Ballard and Reich are. I feel like they acknowledge that there was some things that need to get better. And everybody's like, oh, well, they're not selling to Carson. They're not selling No, they're doing their job. They're keeping all avenues open, and they're doing the best that they can for this team. And this is a weird situation. I mean, you don't have a first-round pick and all that other stuff that we all have been discussing. So I don't understand why it's so shocking that Ballard he's treating the quarterback position like you do every other position. He's looking for the best possible fit, short-term and long-term. I love that concept. Honestly, I feel like this has actually convinced me or put me more on the Chris Ballard bandwagon than less. Everybody's using this as a reason to beat up Coach Reich and Ballard. I'm like, no, guys. These guys gave this kid an opportunity. He was the best solution at the time. And it had the biggest upside. So for me, the upside's still there. Carson Wentz has a year with the team. Carson Wentz is out there practicing with his guys now. You know what I mean? And the thing is there's so much other pieces. You sit there and, you got Quentin Nelson, Michael Pittman Jr., Nyheim Hines. I don't know if you guys happen to notice, but all the big playmakers that Ballard was first to mention were all on the offensive side of the ball. Okay, we're not void of talent. We're not Coach Reich arguably is one of the top 3 or 4 play callers in the league. Okay. Did I think that he had a little bit of trouble adjusting to the awesomeness of JT? I do. I feel like it threw him. I feel like it threw him out of balance a little bit. I feel like But the thing was, I really started feeling like these things were starting to work themselves out. And then to your guys' point, we just didn't perform on the last 2 games of the season. I don't know why. Whether it was a mental thing or I don't know. But my point is there was so much to build on. And everybody is acting like there's just we're void of talent, and I just totally want to disagree with that and scream at the top of my lungs at the people that act that way. Yeah. Welcome, Goki. All right, guys. I want to introduce Goki, Colts fan. He's out of Canada. We do have American Colts fans, by the way, too, guys. It's just not looking like it today.
Why did someone else show up from here, man?
Oh, we got UK there to your left, and then we had Doc from Japan. So yeah, we're getting diversified up in this thing.
All right, nice to see you, Harrison.
Hey, bud. So we're just sort of, I don't know if you heard what was going on earlier. We're just having the good, positive, things that we like about the Colts, things that we, are real happy with and stuff, and wanted to give you a chance to voice your thoughts on it.
Man, you know what? I think that we really need to give Carson Wentz another year. People on Twitter need to stop with this. Carson Wentz is out the door. You you gave up a first round pick. You said that like the coach and whatever they have this thing going on, special chemistry, but then you're gonna break it up just because we had a half bad season. Like just because we had a half bad season, just one. You don't give up on some guy that you invested a first round pick in the NFL after one season. We can also have accidents and cause for losses like we saw in Jacksonville. But for the most part, I'm satisfied that if Jacksonville happens again, Irsay will make changes.
Yeah, Irsay's not one to sit there and just idly let things happen, is he?
Like, I wanted changes this year, but I understand that it's a little quick and that I was a little bit high on adrenaline. You know, and that's why we can give it one more year. If this happens again, though, I'm not gonna be so forgiving. Like I wasn't forgiving. My Twitter handle was pissed off Colts fan for 2 months.
We know, and you did everything you could to earn that, and we're glad to
Yes,
see
I
did. We're glad to see that you've decided to join us back in Happyville.
Well, I'm not happy, but neither are 31 other teams in the NFL.
That's exactly right.
What's going on, everybody? This episode is brought to you by Ultra Game. Ultra Game is officially licensed by the NFL. Ultra Game NFL is a reintroduction to the classic NFL fan gear, boasting innovative design and fabric updates for the fresh fits for today's stadium goers that appeal to everyone. And if you use the link in the description right now, you get this great Ultra Game NFL Men's Sherpa lined full fleece hoodie sweatshirt. That's right. And this full soft fleece hoodie with Sherpa polyester lining ensures comfort and warmth in the cold weather. Length and fits as perfect as a layering piece for any physical activity. Just make sure you use the link in the description. That way you could get your Ultra Game Men's Sherpa full lined zip fleece hoodie sweatshirt at a discounted price. Let's get back to the video.
So let's talk about the positives of the Indianapolis Colts. Can I start with this one, that Carson Wentz isn't that bad? Does that count as a positive? Like, because we covered this on our podcast last night, because of course you guys the combine is in Indy does their press conference. Ballard's like, you guys know what he said. We're sticking to the positives, right? We're not committing. That just blows things through the roof, right? Like that and so like we covered it last night. We're like, he's not that bad. And I think this is coming from a positive perspective. It's not gear me back, but I'm sitting there going, what are you trading Carson Wentz for? And I don't mean compensation. I mean, who are you upgrading with? Jimmy Garoppolo's not an upgrade in my mind. I know there's been that Russell Wilson rumor, but the Colts don't really have the capital for that. I mean, Russell Wilson's an upgrade almost every quarterback in the NFL. So like, let's not, be ridiculous here. And I sat there and I'm like, and Carson's not that bad. And I think that, and I'm saying this in a positive perspective. What happened at the end of the season is not totally on Carson Wentz. I mean, that was a complete, it was the same with our blowout against Buffalo. So we'll keep it negative for both teams, right? So it doesn't seem, it was a complete team collapse the whole way. I don't think Carson Wentz is that bad. I think that you guys got the best running back in the NFL. I have already said it's King Taylor and Derrick Henry. And you've got, I don't know what your free agency output looks like. When healthy, you've got a good offensive line. You have good, solid foundation pieces in your defense. I'll be interested to see what happens at wide receiver this year, because it's a little bit sort of up in the air of who's staying, who's going, who you're giving up on, who you're not. But And then you got Frank Reich, who's a good coach, and Chris Ballard to date has been a pretty solid general manager. So any of the negativity that's flowing around Indianapolis, like, stop. I guess that'll be.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. You know, we've talked about this before. Again, Jonathan Taylor, best running back in the NFL. I think we all agreed MVP candidate last year for sure. Probably should have won it in a lot of people's minds. Excellent offensive line. So whatever issues you think Carson Wentz may have, they're going to mitigate some of those. I think it's more he needs another year in that system to develop, to grow with those players. And they probably need to get him a receiving threat. And I think he'll be fine.
I think it comes down to expectation, right? Like, I think there was Colts fans out there, and believe it or not, guys, Patriots fans, we went through a similar situation with this former MVP that came over and played a year for the Patriots. There was this expectation that this was going to be like year 2 Carson Wentz in Philly. He's back with Frank Reich. Carson Wentz has been beat up over his career. And when you start adding multiple serious season-ending injuries, it changes everything. It changes planting feet. And I mean, look, I say this in jest. I say this in fun. The dude sprang both his ankles in the same game. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that's Carson Wentz's luck, right? Like it's which I'm not somebody, regardless of injury history, who ever puts injuries on players. Like, I hate the word injury prone. I think if your shoulder is hurt over and over again, like the same shoulder is hurt on a consistent basis, that's injury prone to me. You have something wrong with the shoulder that can't be fixed. Tearing an ACL is tearing an ACL. Like, I don't care how many push-ups you do. The ACL is a tendon in your knee. You take a bad hit, it's going to get torn. You know, your cleats stick into the turf in the dome, and you're going to sprain an ankle or two. And when you look at his injuries, I mean, they're all over the board. And I just think some guys have better luck than other guys throughout their careers.
Yeah.
You talk about the injury prone thing, about the same thing happening. We're talking about something like Marcus Mariota's elbow.
Yes, right? The piece of glass that he's a hit away from his career being over. We know that. Like, he's one hit away on his elbow. That's injury prone. That's an issue. I don't think you take Carson Wentz and look at him and say, okay, don't touch him because this is going to fall apart. You don't know what's going to hurt Carson Wentz. And I just, some guys, I always say some guys are bleeders. Some guys are, get hurt. Some guys go on bad luck. And we've seen guys their first 3, 4, 5 years of a career, it looks like they're hurt every year. And then all of a sudden they're fine. Or you get the exact opposite. You get a J.J. Watt, who was Mr. Dependable the starting of his career. And then on the back end of his career, it kind of fell apart for him. I don't know. For me, I always hate the word injury prone, because I think injury prone is the Marcus Mariota situation. That is injury prone. You keep hurting the same thing. If you look at Carson Wentz's injuries, it's been a lot of fluke stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it really has. Like, I know it's easy to be like, he's hurt all the time. Again, sprains and ACLs, like, sprains are tendons. ACLs are tendons. You know what I mean? Like, relax. It's, and again, he's not that bad. He's not great. I'm not going to crown him. He's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. But with the roster he has, with that running back, with that defense, when they perform the way they should perform, if they made it to the playoffs, would I bet against the Colts going on a Super Bowl run? No, because I would have bet against the Cincinnati Bengals going on a Super Bowl run with no offensive line. You know what I mean? So I actually think, and people are going to think I sound crazy for this, roster-wise, the Colts were a better team than the Bengals last season. The Bengals got hot at the right time. The right guys clicked that you needed to click. And for the Colts, they just didn't click when they needed to click. They clicked at a really good point of the season, did that run, and then kind of fell apart.
I want to go back and talk about that. I don't know if COVID can be used as an excuse for the last 2 games of the year. If you think about that Week 16 game against Arizona, like half the team had COVID, right? They didn't play. And then they come back, and Ray and I will attest, it takes more than a week to come back from COVID, period.
Yeah.
You know, it really hits you in a way. And, you know, these guys, week 17 against the Raiders, week 18 against Jacksonville, they didn't play like themselves, the starters that were out during week 16 against the Cardinals. We might have been better off starting some of our backups over some of the guys that, you know, were trying to come back from COVID. You know, that was my thought, you know, after going back and looking at it.
Well, looking at that thought, then they would have seen that in practice during the week, right? Like you would have seen that there's
most of them didn't even get to practice. Most of them were barely making the deadline just to even be in the game.
Well, see, like Darius Leonard said, you know, against the Raiders, the practice was awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Remember, he talked about that, you know, against the week 17 game. He said the practice was awful. There was no energy. There was no, you know, let's go and do this. And to me, that point kind of brings it out of the fact that that could be a side effect from COVID.
Could it also have been a side effect because the Patriots went through this, right? The Patriots went on their 6 or 7 game win streak, went on the bye, and then got shellacked by Indy, got shellacked by the Bills, beat the Jags as we all anticipated, and then got shellacked by Miami the last game of the season.
Well, I was going to say Matt Judon didn't play the same after COVID, potentially, right?
No, he didn't. But I think the other piece of that is too, though, the Colts and the Patriots had something in common last season, and they both started out slow. And they both were in positions that they had to go on these runs to even put themselves in a position to try to get to the playoffs. And I wonder, when you add in COVID, and the Patriots throughout the whole season, they didn't have a big cluster of guys, but throughout the whole season had guys coming in and out with the COVID. I just wonder if at some point both teams just ran out of gas. You know, like the Patriots were out of gas when they got to Indy, and by the time the Colts got to Vegas, it was just like, you know, we've gone all out for 6-7 weeks now, and it's like we don't have it. You know what I mean? Like we're done.
Yeah, the Patriots and Colts were both basically on playing playoff mode during week 4 and week 5, you know, from then on.
And you don't want to be there week 5 because that's a different intensity, that's a different adrenaline, that's a different week of preparation. And I just wonder if, and you've seen teams like that make Cinderella runs in the playoffs who are out of gas by the time they get to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It's like they've pushed it so far and so long and overachieved. And I don't think the Colts overachieved. I think they underachieved. I think the Patriots overachieved. But I just wonder if both teams were just it. They were just gassed by the time they got to certain points of the season, and it was like, this is all we got, guys. Would Matt Stafford have been enough for you guys? Like, would that have been? Was Carson Wentz that bad? You know what I mean? Would he have made the big difference if Stafford was there?
There is a thing. So Stafford, like many other quarterbacks who have, you know, done well over the last couple years, especially last year, had bad games and had situations where he threw bad picks, right? But the difference is Stafford was on a team that was like a baked potato from Wendy's. It was loaded. All right. They had everybody on that, and when someone goes down, they go out and get somebody else, right? The wide receiver goes down, they go out and get OBJ.
Not Jackson.
Woods, Robert Woods.
Yeah, Robert Woods. Yeah,
Woods. Yeah. He always had somebody, 2 or 3, 4 guys to throw to, always. You know, and that's a situation that Carson Wentz just didn't have.
Yeah. Ballard in the presser today yesterday said, you know, the Colts had 3 playmakers that he looks at. You know, he says Nyheim Hines, Jonathan Taylor, and Michael Pittman Jr. I would argue that the Rams had more than that just in their receiving core as far as playmakers and stuff.
Well, you figure if I were to tell you, if you didn't know the results, and you said, "Hey Ray, how'd the Super Bowl go?" and I said, "Well, Higbee couldn't play, or Higbee, whatever. Higbee couldn't play. OBJ went down in the second quarter. And the Rams couldn't get the run game going. You'd have been like, oh, so the Bengals won. I'd be like, no. No, they didn't because Cooper Kupp is just like he was an MVP.
Well, and
they got a defense.
Yeah.
What's that word?
Defense,
I don't know what
that
that
offensive line. I think that people may have still been. Was it a close game?
Yeah. No, it's you're right. I mean, you got that loaded defense. Why your defense is better on the first snap of the game than the last snap of the game because they're fresh at the start of the game, right? You need to feed. So if Matthew Stafford throws a bad interception, it's all right. Sam Darnold and Von Miller, they'll get a couple of sacks. Jalen Ramsey will pick off the football and they'll get the ball back for you, right? I mean, didn't we see that in the Super Bowl where it was just like 2 back-to-back interceptions for either team and we just had a fresh start? You know what I mean? Like it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to take this a little bit differently. You guys sitting there, we're talking a lot about what do you think of the Colts defense? I mean, what are some of the things when you look at this defense?
I hate your defense. I hate it with a passion.
That's a good thing. So I guess that's positive.
Who the hell gets Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner on the same team?
I was just going to say.
The same team.
Had 33 turnovers last year, was tied for first in the NFL in turnover differential, was number 1 in the NFL in points off turnovers. That's impressive.
I hate your defense. Why don't we just give you Matt Judon too, since you guys are so completed there? No, your defense. I mean, this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but especially the way the season ended. But when you look at it as a whole, that Colts defense is no different than the Rams defense to me. It really isn't. I mean, it's the different style, different play, but when you look pound for pound, talent for talent, if that was a heavyweight fight, that would be a split decision to me. I think they're just as powerful, if at positions better than and they don't have, in my opinion, any overrated players on their team. Like the Rams have overrated Jalen Ramsey, and I think that people boost the defense up a little bit more because Jalen Ramsey's there. He's a very, very good running, or very, very, very good cornerback, but he gets burnt a lot more than people want to admit. That Colts defense, I mean, we talked about that all offseason before the season even started. Oh, they got Carson Wentz, they can't win. I'm like, that defense is no joke. You know what I mean? Like, stop acting like that. It reminds me almost of like the Titans, right? They got all these injuries. I'm like, that defense in Tennessee was no joke either. You know what I mean? Like it's you got to do it. But no, the Colts, I hate your defense, and I say that in a positive way for you guys. I hate you guys with a passion.
Yeah, I don't have much to say there other than back right. Listen, that defense is no joke. Like I said, behind that offensive line, with that defense, with that running back, Carson Wentz can do things.
And they got a secondary. Like,
yeah.
It's not like it's only up front. Like, they got the Colts are like a team. Because outside of Indy, I don't hear a lot of people talking about Darius Leonard. Like, he doesn't get the national headlines. They don't talk about DeForest Buckner. They don't talk about that Indy secondary. And I understand some of it is because of the market. However, you remind me of this, like, there's no individual on that defense. You know what I mean? It's just the Colts defense. And that pisses me off for so many different reasons. Because when you're just the defense, and the Patriots did that for years. It was just the Patriots defense. When you're just the defense and you're not signaling people out on the national media on a daily basis, that's the defense I don't want to go out. I don't want to go. I want to play the defense that talks about 2 or 3 guys.
Hold on now. You can't hate them. Didn't you take the Colts defense in one of your fantasy leagues?
Oh, yes. Listen, I'm very smart when it comes to fantasy. Listen to this guy.
All right, guys. Hey, I appreciate both of you taking time, come in, talk.
Thanks for having us, boys.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Guys, real quick before we end up out of here, make sure you go check out Mike and Ray over on Dear Pats Nation still. right?
Dear Pass, yeah, we're back to Dear Pass Nation.
Okay, Dear Pass Nation. He changes about 3 times a year, so it's kind of hard to keep up. But yeah, go check out Dear Pass Nation and check him out on Twitter, both Mike and Ray. And until next time, hey, that was Loyalist. I'm Lawrence Owen. That's Ray Rout. That's Mike, the producer. And I guess that's what you want to be called. Is that what you want to be called?
Producer Mike.
Yeah,
Producer Mike.
Ray deals with the name. That's fine with me.
I have
when you're in my Discord, you're just Mike.
I have a text message from Mike when I said, "Do you want to be Producer Mike?" And he with legit response of, "I love that."
Did I say that?
Yeah, I call him Michael anyways. I go full Italian. He's Michael when I speak to him.
Oh, okay. Well, until next time, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.